Okay, we're recording. Christina Merkley here and another visual coaching session. And I have Steve with me. Hello, Steve. Welcome.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks.
Good to have you here. So we've had a bit of a preliminary conversation. So I know you're here local, and you, like everybody in the world right now, is in a transition, one way to sum up. So there's a shift happening in your consciousness and a shift happening in how you want to show up in the world and how you want to build off of your very robust background already in business and venture capital and all that kind of stuff. So because there's a shift going on, you're figuring out how to represent that to the world more. And in our conversation, you were looking for maybe some visuals to help do that on your website, visual bio or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then in that conversation, I mean, visual bios are really dependent. There's this whole, which you're in the midst of, and that's why we're here doing this. You're in the midst of really synthesizing out your content, right? And the lens that you put on your life and your work, and who are you now, and who are you wanting to attract now, right? With what you're doing, or how do you want to interface with them?
Right.
So sometimes that sifting of the story and the identity and the information, there's different ways to enter that. We may end up doing this in a kind of conventional kind of way, right? Where cognitively just get it down, and it'll be it'll be a version 1.0, but or maybe 2.0, depending on what you've already done yourself. But we might also go more right brain on it, which is access and tap into different states of your consciousness that can help you with the culling of the information. So one way to do that, there's a technique I do called the future self, but there's lots of different ways we can access it. So that's my summation, and that kind of helps to bring us into the now. Anything you want to say in response to that, and we'll just kind of find our way here?
Yeah, I mean, you said a few things that kind of prodded some response on my part, which is, the first of all, the shift of consciousness, and the first thing that came to mind was, the chronology that I have experienced around the different degrees of consciousness, whether there were heavy lifting or not heavy lifting, significantly shifting from a more unconscious place to a deeper consciousness. So there's this long-term path that I'm on. But the other part about the shifting of consciousness that came to mind when you said those words were like, how am I aware of the temporal ones, or the real-time ones that are kind of happening on top of the slow and melodious path, so there's like this, almost an X and a double Y axis a Y and a double Y axis that are going on with the time on the X axis that I think that way,
And different levels, right? So maybe the meta level, and then that physical tactical level.
Yeah, so true, right? And that came across relative to, and then shifting that and overlapping that with, a concentric circle around business and what business was in the past and what business is today, and the common thread is me in this case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how those on the chronology has shifted, along with, moving out the old regime of the more of the Fortune 500 capitalistic mindset to something very different now. And it kind of just, it's not even ironic, but it's beautiful in the sense of what consciousness really does end up leading towards, right? Something that's more intrinsic and something that's more helpful to the world around me.
You're the clay, and it's molding you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other part was, I mean, I think I'm already talking about, like, in my mind, when you said the visuals for the and how that's going to show up on the visuals, it's already in my mind, already kind of like taking some you know, some degree of focus already.
From your current, this kind of physical now state of consciousness, we may tap into the meta state to help you get that layer and perspective on things, but what are you seeing as who you are now and who it is that, or what is it you're wanting to do and attract, right? Because that website is a central hub for you, right? It's a place, probably a lot of it, I know you're very networked and people probably aren't going to just come to your website. It's because of some sort of connection or interaction with you. And the website is an ancillary piece, a companion piece for that. So how do you see that website working for you, and what's the interface about? Who would find their way there, and what's your sense now of what you want that dialogue or exchange to be?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a large part of the website and the work that I'm doing now is, or that I want to make clearer for those around me, is the point that we're talking about right now and how that has changed, right? And not only how it's taken a Y in the road, but like how it's taken all these diverse, very specific new directions, right? So it's not like 180, I guess. It was a lot of ways to show it, but I guess what I'm saying is that there's a
You want to show the evolution. You want to see that, you want to show the development. It's not so much like here I am now, but you want to show the lead up or some of that historical stuff to position who you are now.
yeah, exactly. And I think to that point in the historical, that doesn't change, right? That's
Who you are.
that's
Yeah.
who it is, and that's
Yeah.
that was the experience, whether it's, life experience or business experience or domestic, whatever it was there. I think the part that is necessary to show for me is the new application, so to speak, right? So, I mean, it was applied the same, not the same person, but the same skills. That's where this is interesting to me, right? So you have, basically, somebody has an MBA who can do a certain amount of data analytics, but when it's facing, an old set of corporate initiatives and things versus like shifting the same thing, a different person, a shifting person, an evolving person into like social impact. How do I want that to show up on a website or visually, and it doesn't even need to be complicated, because I think I shared with you before is that I'm not looking for quantity.
Yeah.
It's, the quantity, quality, X and Y axis. In the past it would be like, oh, I want more, more, more. I really want less, 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 but
Mm-hmm.
better, better, better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm getting this sense of this and this, right? It's like kind of previous Steve and now Steve, and there might even be future Steve, right? Because you're in a state of evolution.
Sure.
And knowing a bit about you too, it's an impressive background. So of course you want to highlight the background, right? To some extent, but you want to do it in a way that makes sense for the social impact world that you're most interested in playing in now. How would you define, is it just to get some of the previous Steve and now Steve, we might get some of the future Steve too, but if you're to give it adjectives, right? I've heard you say business and I've heard you say social impact, right? Kind of feeding these two places.
Yeah.
What else is from this now consciousness? I may in a sec here bop you out to another consciousness, but I'm curious about what your now consciousness from this state says. In the work you've been doing, the noodling around this, what's the essence of that old world that seems you do that survives the cut, right? That you do want to have on there because you want to go
Yeah.
for simplicity, but it's like, what's the stuff that's prime or key in there, and what are the adjectives you would use to describe that, previous you, that if you're looking back in that historical, what's the essence of it? We can go later into like different positions or companies or things like that makes sense to do it, but I'm curious at the more general level, the more essential level right now.
Yeah, I would, the first thing that comes across is this awareness that I was involved with healthcare and pharmaceuticals for 35 years at so many different levels, from entry level to running companies, and then all the diversity that went along with that during that time, um, and the Kool-Aid that I drank during that time too, right? So that doesn't mean that when you take the Kool-Aid out and you're more, your consciousness is a bit cleaner, because Kool-Aid, all it does is dampen the consciousness, right? And I think I think healthcare in general is not something that is to be thrown out with the bathwater. It is like a beautiful area to assist in, right? Whether it's prevention. So I started to dabble with how it was showing up for me, right? And how that thread, which are many threads of the past, are seem to be showing up in the little companies and the little projects that I've been doing in the more conscious shifting place in the last 5 to 7 years, have all been showing up um, around healthcare or prevention, and it's been becoming more and more honed with regards to that. So um, I would say, that, and then, just
Hold
basics.
on one sec. And
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just
You're
gonna,
trying to cap,
I'm
you're
gonna,
trying to capture something.
yeah, well, now I'm gonna screen share. So I
Yeah,
just wanna
I
make
see it.
sure you can see it.
I
And
can.
what I've done is I've created, I do think we're gonna tap into the future self, but right now you're being your now self and some good stuff's coming out. So on this left-hand side, I wanna get some of the essence of what you're just getting in touch with and get this down. So, so we got healthcare, and specifically around that, give me the specifics that you were starting to tap into.
The specifics, I don't know exactly. There's so many specifics around healthcare, but I mean, what's coming up for me is just the difference between the past and the current and the future would
Mm-hmm.
be treatment versus. I mean, here are the obvious ones. I could dive into the specificity of those really easy, but I mean, the difference between treatment versus prevention, and then all the paradigms that are around each of those, right? So, um, meaning moving from the treatment old pharma kind of model, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
build out a massive marketplace for diseases that exist or might not exist, or market and make a disease market just to sell product,
Mm-hmm.
and now, this is, not that I didn't know what prevention was in the past, but I mean, I was just drank the treatment Kool-Aid so much that I didn't really think about the wellness in the prevention piece. um, that's happening in the current place, on how I can shift my wealth of experience, knowledge, technical, as well as personal skills in that area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So back there in the past is kind of the old pharma model, drinking the Kool-Aid in terms of just the emphasis on creating the markets, right? Making a market, pushing a market, um, and actualizing that product uh, to make the most money you can.
Yeah, and I'm really, I mean, it's funny because I always talk, and you can stop me, but I'm always
Mm-hmm.
trying to like have um a macro micro view on everything, that I kind of like and this is bringing up an example of like all the current events that are happening right now. It's like I generally, I have whiteboards all around my office right here, and I have this concept that I try not to throw anything out with the bathwater, even though it might show up like this is showing up right now. Like I haven't thrown out life sciences and healthcare and medicine and prevention, which I probably could if I really swung the pendulum too strongly from, eradicating myself from an industry that at some parts of it are tricky for me to navigate. And now how do I kind of pivot with the strengths of of those
Mhm.
skills and those experiences.
Okay, excellent. We've talked about the industry. What about you particularly? Still general, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to give out any names or anything like that, but in that industry, what were your strengths? What is your, I mean, you were very successful at it, so it wasn't all luck, right?
Well, you know, I think
So to
there's always,
position you, what are your skills and strengths in that?
yeah. And first of all, I think there's my general answer to that, and then me getting into some specifics is that I actually do believe that it's about time and place. That does speak
Mm-hmm.
to whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call luck or whatever it is. I mean, the right person at the right time with the right people with, you know, you don't have to be, in other words, you don't have to be, you know, a 4.0 Ivy League person to be successful in many aspects of life. You know, you have to be average or above and show up, you know. So and I just did, you know. I mean, not to bring in astrological signs and stuff, but you know, I'm a Taurus with a double Capricorn, so that doesn't that helps a lot,
That's
you
a
know.
lot of drive. That's a lot of drive in there. Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of
right.
climbing mountains. Yep.
Yeah, right. To a fault, you know, and to a
Hmm.
fault, and that's actually part of the
Mm,
shifting piece too, you
yeah.
know. So I mean, you know, I had, that's why I said quantity over quality, and you know, you when given the opportunity to cut down, you know, whatever analogy it is, to do a project, and you just you just more is better. And then if more is better, and that's the philosophy of the consciousness in that past place, you just go for it.
Yeah.
And you know, I that doesn't mean that that's not taking anything away from me, because you know, along with the drive, which is what that is really
Hmm.
there, you know, I definitely had an education, and I definitely loved certain things that really fit into the climate that I jumped into, which, you know, if if you're halfway educable, I didn't have a science background, right? So but I jumped into a whole science world, and I was educable, and I was really good with people. So being good with people and driven and educable, you could almost do anything really. You know, there's no, and I just happened to be in this space, you know, and loved the science part of it, and loved the technical part of it, you know, which is like the math, the science. So the math, the science became, you know, something that was a strong suit for me. And then, you know, and I was always just good for people. So I ended up getting more and more management skills, and then running large, um,
Mm.
you know, I started on the sales department, which everybody does in the pharmaceutical industry, but I quickly went through that and then got promoted to the home office. And in short order, through a lot of analytic kind of um, stop off points, which were awesome. Those are super building points for executives and companies and running marketing companies, because they run the marketing programs way differently. I want to say way better because I'm biased on that one, but I say way differently because they are doing it from a strong data analytics point of view versus like hunches, you know. So
Mm.
and it wasn't in short order that I was running like a $1 billion product and multiple people and a $52 million marketing budget for that $1 billion
Okay,
product.
so
So
that's all stats are very important in numbers. So slow that down and say that again for me so I can get it down. How many
yeah,
people, how many?
yeah. I mean, you know, I did the standards in the sales thing, and then when I got promoted into the home office after I got my MBA,
Mhm.
I did short runs in a few data analytic market research for one, and then
Mhm.
data analytics for two, and then three got right into marketing, and then right up the scale on marketing to running um, the largest product in our company at the time was a $1 billion product,
Mm.
and it we had a $52 million marketing budget for that. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of great experience for me. And actually, the category that I worked in was actually, you know, I probably resonated with because it was for serious infections in a hospital. So it wasn't like preventions kind of things. You know, going back to that whole model of, you know, treatment versus prevention story that's hovering over the landscape of our conversation.
Yes.
It 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 wasn't like a pill to be sold as a me too in a really weird wonky market. You know, it was for
Mm.
like serious infections. There are nosocomial infections in the hospital where people are truly worried about mortality. You know,
Yeah.
so
So
so for me
let's
that was
tap into
cool.
that, because there's something as opposed to the, create a market that doesn't exist stuff. Here is something that's serious and that makes a difference. And
Yeah.
so let's extract out the essence of what that is about, because that's probably part of it, because integrity wise, that was important to you. There was something in there that um, clicked. So as you turn your focus, your body, your mind, spirit to that, extract out the essence of that patient that's getting that product that you created. What is it doing for them?
Well, it's saving lives, you know.
Yes.
So I mean, it's I mean, I say that with tongue in cheek because it just seems like everybody thinks they're saving lives these days on in the hospital and in healthcare and stuff. But there is, you know, it is that, right? So I
Hmm.
mean, it's
So that particular thing that you were involved with did. So it saved lives. Yeah. Good.
but I wish I could say that I had like a deeper conscious reality at that point. But I think it came to me versus I came to it. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I didn't search it out and look for the most conscious product in my company. Plus, trust me, you know, that's about the time and place thing, you know, and you know,
Well, it can
I
also
mean
go to the
that's the way
energetics,
consciousness.
energetic side of it, right? So it's that right brain side of it, the vibrational frequency side, if you will. I'm also finding myself pulled to the marketing, because obviously, you went to and then you pushed away, and that's okay, the saving lives thing. But there's probably something to milk and pinpoint in there around the success of it, right? The $1 billion product, the 52 million marketing budget, the big team. What about that? All of those things in terms of a visual bio are interesting, right? For people to know about you, and they're true and they're authentic. Um, but for you personally, was that, some people that would be unappealing, other people it would be appealing. I'm thinking for a double Taurus, it's probably great territory for you. And if so, why? Like, extract out the adjectives. What about that? Was it exciting? Was it um, uh, competitive? What's
Yeah,
the,
I mean, and
yeah.
you know, I mean, exciting and competitive when you're a Taurus and a double Capricorn. That all that does is, you know, set all kinds of goals and aspirations. And you're talking about a guy that comes from a blue collar background, and to be given those opportunities, even though they're not intrinsic, they're a 100% extrinsic, right? So it just fit this guy at that time, right? So the shifting at that moment was, you know, very exciting because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was talk about reward and punishment. I mean, you worked hard, you got promoted. You worked
Mm-hmm.
hard, you got promoted, and you got like a lot of prestige, and you end up in the number one product in the number one seat. And you know, it fed a very clear old, you know, mantra, an old story that was delivered. You know, I joke around and I hesitate to say it here online right now, but when I didn't start out in the pharma industry. I started out like working with, you know, mentally challenged and youth groups and stuff like that. And I
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that that was going to be sustainable financially for me. So I made a deal with the devil, and the devil totally, you know, you could use a lot of synonyms and get the thesaurus out to downplay what I just said. But I mean, the industry delivered because it was a perfect match for me, right? It was like, you know, giving as I gave, I was getting more and more rewards for that. And that was powerful for me, you know, because
So I'm collecting it because from a visual bio point of view, that's interesting, right? So the mentally challenged youth, um, was that social work, or how would you?
yeah, it was sort of like that. It was
Mhm.
really like that. And you know, so the last job that I had, I moved from the East Coast. So all of this stuff that just geographically, along with the chronology, is most of my world was in the Northeast, like New York, Philly,
Mm,
you know,
mhm.
very competitive world. And it's like the place that only, you know, they only, that part of the world only exists to them, right? And then I moved to Seattle in the mid 80s, and I
Mhm.
started working. I got a whole different mindset of people in Seattle. And, but this is still in that category for the 3 or 4 years out of university where I was working with, you know, youth or mentally challenged. And I worked in this group home in
Mhm.
Seattle. I was one of a full-time counselor that back at the group home that I worked at, there was 3 counselors, and each one of them stayed in the group home all night, all day for during their shift, and then the next person came in. So I had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night. Um, but you know, up to that point, I was just, you know, I was into more of the noble things to do and helping out. It's ironic of where I am today, right now, coming full circle on all this stuff. But
Mhm.
I mean, there was probably, you know, an inherent piece of Steve that, you know, I let go of for quite a while, drank the Kool-Aid, and
Mhm.
did, you know, it was meant to be the route, you know, because right now here I am rolling back into something that is more, you know, impactful for the good of man, that I could never have done it had I done at the level, you know, the scale of what we're talking about right now.
I also just want to speak to what I pick up emotionally too. So there seems some judgment and some even shame. Uh, just the way you're phrasing it about deal with the devil. I'm going to write that out.
Yeah, I'd say I've kind of come a long way on the shame and dealing with it. It's more of like a comical thing right now of the reality of the, and not being, I'm not ashamed of it. It's like,
Hmm.
you know, it's I really am proud, you know, even when we're talking right now, I'm proud of it. But you know that when you're working for something that is less than, you know, I have to dial down my pride on what it was in the industry, so to speak. But
Hmm.
you know what I learned through it. Yeah, I'm right at the front of the class right now on how to distribute those those byproducts in a whole different place now.
Hmm.
And then, you know, and then
Well,
I,
hmm.
yeah, sorry, and then I left. I because I had my MBA, I left a big pharma,
Hmm.
and
Mm.
I moved down to Philly to help start a small company for data analytics for the
Mm.
whole industry.
Ah, talk about right timing. Hmm.
Yeah, and we built the company out from 0 people to 600 people. And I was a part of a father and son, very small shop, and we built out the company in a way that was visionary and new. And we basically garnered electronic claims data, and we were able to do a massive amount of analysis for the whole industry. So meaning pharma, diagnostics, you name it. We were at government. We had information from government data, Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, it was just a blast, and I had a blast doing that too. And we built it out, and it was, and then we sold it back in 2012 or so. But that was cool. I mean, it was basically me kind of like having a really good idea of what more refined skill set I had on healthcare, data analytics, coaching, consulting like really bright people at really big companies was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then through that time, just to kind of like put all, most of the things up on the board. I don't know if we're trying to be comprehensive or going deeper in something.
You're doing great, but you bang, bang, bang gave me 3 great headings. So you said healthcare, data analytics, and
Healthcare, data analytics, consulting and
that was it,
coaching.
coaching and consulting. That's what it
Coaching
was.
like my
Yeah,
my clients, and they were like, and it was
that's an
every
important
all,
part.
yeah, and it was,
Leadership.
and it was cool because I was with one company, the pharma company, like for 15 years, and then I only had exposure to one company, my company, pretty much. And then with this, I got into every pharma company,
Mm,
every biotech company. So I had exposure to a lot of
mm-hmm.
people, a lot of leaders, and it was it was a beautiful entrepreneurial time to start. Because you get an MBA. Nobody gets an MBA that doesn't get a dose of being an entrepreneur. But if you're working for a big pharma company, you have golden handcuffs on the day you
Yeah,
start,
yeah.
basically.
You can't be entrepreneurial. Yeah.
And everybody thought I was bananas by leaving, big pharma and having the job that I just described to you. It was like, what happened to Steve? He bumped his head.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, this is, with my experience with visual bios, this is great. We're doing a good version 1.0 extraction. As I said to you, I'm probably not going to be the one who ends up doing the emergence of the visual bio. They usually take 2 or 3 editions, right? But it starts with what we're doing, and what you've already started on your own, which is there's extraction, getting the story. What
Yeah.
I'm very good at is feeling the hot spots of the story, right? So this beginning stage here, in the beginning, right, kind of the genesis story of you. There might be some other stuff too that you care to share, that even if it's just Northeast Philly kind of stuff. But what you did with the group home and mentally challenged youth there in Northeast area there of New York, or the US and Philly, that's an interesting piece, especially because you've come back to it, and where you're positioning in your audience now. It's good for them to know about you, that those are your roots and where you started with, and there's some deep resonance there. Then you go into the 2 phases of the healthcare. You've got the old school big pharma that you started with. Then there's the startup. So different people too, that's appealing to, depending on who's observing you and the kinds of projects you get in, right? So I would do that with big pharma is going to be the next kind of milestone. And then we've got over here with startup, I'll put up.
And then there's another startup that gets me back over to Victoria and where I am now, which is the other big chunk of time, which is the last 15 years has been in Victoria. And it's sort of been spliced over the top of the time that I was with the company in Philly, because I'll go into the details, but I basically took a little sabbatical, came out here, helped start a biotech company, and then left that, and then started another company and merged it back into the one in Philly. I know that was kind of blurby, but I'll go.
No, but something, you're telling me that because there's another essence in there. That was another
Totally.
stage. Something
That's
happened in that that's important. So what's the important part?
Yeah, it's probably the one that goes right into the current time frame of consciousness, because it is a lot happened that were tricky and unique. And then when you have an environment like Victoria, British Columbia, and the Pacific Northwest versus New York and Philly, there's another level of openings for me to kind of like see and hear. And I was around people in this area that I was never around in, even though people called me a tree hugger when I was on the back on the East Coast. Oh my God, it was nothing compared to what the true tree huggers are here. So,
Okay, good.
yeah,
Good. I'm hearing it more maybe from the personal side as opposed to the professional side is what this second startup gave to your story.
yeah, because the second
Yeah.
startup was just a catalyst to get here, right? I mean, I
Uh-huh.
mean, they found me because they were a client of mine, and it was a great financial situation. I came here for 1 year and helped them out, and a lot of things went sideways with them and me personally.
Yep.
Just because it wasn't one of those relationships that I wanted to maintain for a long period of time. So you know, ended that and then started another company in Victoria,
Mm-hmm.
um, combining all of the stuff that I learned with the company in Philly and the pharma industry, but a whole new category, which was clinical trials. I'd never had
Mm,
experience with clinical trials before. And then, without going into all the details, I used
mm-hmm.
all that wealth of data analytics to kind of like apply it into a whole nother category of clinical trials, which is, if you know anything about it, it's pharma and life sciences spend so much money on doing clinical trials, where there's phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 clinical trials, and they always come up short on over on their budget and late on getting things done in a timely manner. And finding patients with the inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria through electronic data shortened the process. So it was
Mm,
really cool. And the irony is, I started that company here in Victoria
mm-hmm.
and then merged it into the Philly company. So
Mm,
that's then all of that. When you
another
see you
full
have there
circle.
sold in 2012,
Mm-hmm.
it was the amalgamation of all of that. Then the old company in Philly and the new company that I started here, we merged it together and then we sold it in
Wow.
2012.
Wow. Wow. Cool. I put down in brown too, this is another track that you can put in the visual bio. And it's great we've got this as a record because there's different people I'll probably refer you to for doing the next stage of this, doing the real illustration of it. And it's great for them to listen to. So whoever ends up doing this, do a geographical track too. So we've got Philly, Seattle, Victoria, coming back to Philly. So often with visual bios, there's these rows that go through, right? Or these columns, these kind of category areas. And so you've got a category area emerging with the yellow popping out here, right? Of the big category areas of the career or professional trajectory, right? So
Yeah,
that's one band that goes across. Probably along the bottom, you've got the geographical band. Probably up at the top is the consciousness band, right? As your consciousness is morphing and evolving and shifting as you're going through these various things, and different things are happening to you internally and in your personal life and stuff. Also, you've got education of various degrees, right? Whether it's formal education or street smarts education, that might be a band going
yeah.
through as well. Um, good. Now there was something else I was gonna say. It'll come back. Um,
Yeah, there was while you're
mhm,
thinking that,
mhm.
it just jogged the thought of, like, and I've historically have used in my marketing and a lot of the personal things of doing mind mapping, and in my personal way, everybody has a different way, and I'm sure you do too. But I mean, like, having a circle of like who I am, and then the spokes coming out of like
Mhm.
what's developed over time, and when you said the chronology piece and the geography piece, the spokes keep on changing, right? So it's
Cool.
not only quantity but quality in the spoke story, that it's like almost a small spokes, the mind mapping thing, and over time it kind
Yeah,
of
that's
like
good. So
it
in
changes over time.
yeah, and I'm seeing it's nice that you already have a connection to a shape, right? There's different formats in this work, and a lot of times visual bios end up being a timeline kind of thing, right? And sometimes they're embedded on different scenery or whatever because it shows a journey from left to right,
Yeah,
logical. But I love what you're doing because you're going more Mandela, right? I know you're talking about mind mapping, but which is organic in that, but there's more of a circular, right? More of a central kind of thing. So for the studio work person that I end up connecting you two, right, and probably helping collaborate with this, that's going to be important information for them. So, hey, person, we've already got a format starting to emerge here too. How cool is that? And it's really fun for us to actually do more of the central Mandela organic-y ones because we do a lot of the linear ones. So,
Yeah.
yay!
And you know how
Yeah.
much, yeah, and I know you know me enough to know that I love concentric circles. So even that would be like, you know, another circle gets added, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
then the overlap at the end ends up being this place that we're talking about right now, which is sort of why I'm doing what I'm doing now, and trying to like incorporate that into this next phase, you know.
Yep. Really good, Steve. So this is the I hope you feel that too, but I'm excited by what's happening, and
Yes, for sure, I do.
this is the left brain. We're talking cognitively, right? I'm talking to your now self and your left brain, which gave us all sorts of really important logical, linear kind of information which we need. Now I want to do whole brain. I want to go over into the right brain. So I do want to go into future self because it's a wonderful opportunity for anybody to more thoroughly connect to their future selves. We got tons of them out there, and I'll help you figure out which one you're going to go to now. But B, it's going to be holistic. It's going to the future self. It has already done all this, right? What you're in the midst of creating and this identity morph and ascension process, whatever you want to call it, transformation process that's happening, he's galvanized into that. So he's going to be able to give you that bird's eye view, and also, you know, the trajectory of looking back on you. He can guide you. You can ask him different kinds of questions, and he has a different awareness because his consciousness is different from where your now consciousness is. So he may comment on, hey, this is what's happening for you, or hey, here's some soothing thoughts about 2020, right? Because it's a heck of a year that we're all going through. He may have some stuff to say about the network that you're currently in and who to focus on, projects, potentialities, right? So, and once you're introduced to your future self, if you grok with it, it's an ally. So, and I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. This is great to have a male entrepreneur because they often won't come and do the recording. So thank you so much for doing it. And many of them love this technique and continue to connect with the future self because it's a way, like many business people do, whether they're conscious of it or not, to tap into their intuition, right? To tap into the infinite field, right? The subconscious, that the one, because it knows everything. So just to talk to the left brain about how powerful this activity can be. Okay, let's figure out, go ahead. Yeah.
No, just a comment on that. It's interesting because I'm glad to riff on that part of it, and I think just inherently I have struggle is too strong of a word, but struggle doing this in a more formal way because of the method that I have organically done it so far, and I just feel like right now that the universe, whatever, is making it clear to me that I need to step it up a little bit, you know, in doing the good work, you know, instead of just kind of like being shy in the back of the room now with all of these skill sets in a whole nother category. Because I'm actually, when I go to these meetings and somebody who knows me like we're talking right now, like you now know me. So if you and I went into a meeting, you'd be able to like give me a preamble and they would be going, okay, well, this is what we want to talk about. And you need to lead the session.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just funny how with that's showing up right now, where I'm like, I can't be complacent about being in the room
You're being called. You're
if
being
somebody
called to step up.
if
Yeah.
somebody knows even part of this, they're like, hold on, dude, you here's the marker, you do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a bit of hiding or some humility and
Yeah, you know, I
toning
mean,
it down.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go super Buddha on you, but I mean, it's like, it's sort of like what I'm trying to live in this future self place is like you know,
Well, I love it. Let's go visit Super Buddha.
well, I mean, it's about being conscious and aware,
Yeah.
and the fine line of bringing the self and ego, whatever you want to call it, into this, even though I'm very aware of, like, let's call the self and ego, all this stuff that we have on the whiteboard right now. And then if then on these two concentric circles, that one is clear, who, pretty clear of who and what skill sets are. The one that isn't as clear, but is great when you have sensitivity and consciousness and awareness to it, is like what shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Not just in life, but business and life, but
Yes.
life things too. So I'm like, somebody runs into my car, that's like, I have to like deal with whatever happened. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I have to like, deal with that. So those things have been evolving right now, and just being like, and then when they show up, then lean in. 'Cause I have this tattoo that basically shows that, like in concentric circles. One of them is surrender, and one of them is discipline. Ironic that I use the word discipline again, right? It's like, it's all
Well,
over.
so it's a lovely polarity, right? And different people work different themes in life. So this is interesting
And this,
of
and
the
the
balance.
center
Yeah.
part is like this alchemy called flow. I mean, this is where
Mm,
it's not clunky. Then that you're, flow is not like, um sort of. Flow is like impactful and clear, and when it's like harmony, and when it's happening. It's not. Flow is unique. Synergy and alchemy is unique.
yes, very much. I like alchemy. Let me put that in. Yeah, I'll see.
So now the universe is like, it's funny because it is actually kind of funny, when you're ready and you're showing up and your heart is ready to be in the game, so to speak, on the social impact stuff or something that's more noble for the good of mankind, and you're timid, I'm timid, or whatever it is, going into like something different. That timidity has changed over the last 5 years, and that's probably why I'm sitting in front of you right now, because
Yeah,
I'm like, this is an example of it right in itself.
yeah.
It's like, okay, enough.
You got the shifty coach on it, so it must be ready to come out.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And all along, it's not been like me being in the belly of the whale, even though that's a huge part of the self-awareness part, is like showing, not being in a rush. It's like whatever's showing up. And I mean, I'm a big believer on doing things on a pilot basis. And this seems like the universe is on the same page with me, because I'm getting like these projects that have been baby steps. And then I go to these meetings, and all of a sudden I can just like almost laugh to myself, like, oh my God, this is now why. Because there's
Yeah.
like
You're
something big,
understanding
some,
the forms come together, right?
something
It's
bigger is there,
yeah.
and I'm like, I'm trying not to like, let my ego get in the ego part of the big part of it. But I mean, there's something, I don't need big, you know what I mean? That's not the driver anymore. And that's something I'll always have to, my daily work is about not letting big become extrinsic, you know what I mean? So it's a situation that I'm gonna have to just constantly, that's part of the path,
It's part of what you're working, it's your soul work here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, again, a little bit of the beat up, right? So there's this interesting thing of having that double Taurus and liking it and all the great stuff about it, but also the tempering of it, right? So back and forth of it.
Just to be
Um,
clear, it's a single Taurus and a double Capricorn.
ah, okay. Well, that even makes more sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. And even that I'm not even ashamed of. It's sort of like, I have two, I mean, this, but those that are listening, and for me to even verbalize it again, as a younger, older man, I have I have an early version of having both of my knees replaced from 5 years ago. I mean, I'm not 75. I did it when I was 55. So it was like I wore them out too
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. To speak to the double Capricorn, the climate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The irony of that one.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the future self. Let's figure out which one to go to. So I'm going to rattle off some things, and one of them's going to stand out for you. So there's short-term, medium-term, long-term, right? You've done a lot of strat planning kind of stuff in your day. So shorter term future self would be in the next year or so. Midterm would be 3 to 5 years, and a longer term would be beyond 5. And it could be quite a stretch, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, right?
Yeah.
Take your pick. So out of that, let's start with short term, medium, or long. Which one stands out to you? What beckons?
Well, I guess if there's anything around beckoning or awareness around beckoning, my little preamble on this is that, and I'm not saying I don't want to do this exercise, but I honestly am. I think so differently right now, and that is partly because of the people that I've come in contact with that have been a part of this whole new journey of this future self. Let's say in my baby versions of that is like I've almost had all kinds of counsel around. Counsel maybe is too strong of a word, but certainly some consciousness and conversations around like, don't worry about 5 years. Just worry about what's coming up right now, and all the other stuff will work out, And I always, I worked for companies for like 15 years. It's like, so I didn't jump around. But now, if I'm involved with something for 5 weeks, I know it's just a little player in the whole larger scheme of things. So I only say that to say when I think of future self.
Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's higher self. Maybe it's Buddha self. We're just playing with states of consciousness, right? One way to access future self. But I think what that did for you, understandably, because I said, oh, you've done tons of strat planning, is it got you into your logical mind, and you're like, I don't want to do it that way.
Partially, yeah, for sure.
It doesn't have to be that. And your future self probably won't be that at all, and he probably will be very Buddha. So it's more of sensing for that. There's a part of you right now that wants to talk to you. So where does that part lie? Yeah.
I think I'm going to repeat myself here on, maybe I was jumping into it a little bit early on the higher self or the future self. And that is, because we've chatted before, but I almost don't have any conversation without having either verbalized it or put it on a whiteboard on quantity versus quality on an X and Y graph. And my future self and current self is downgrading all of and minimizing the quantity stuff, which is the again, the knees, the Capricorn, and
right.
Is doing less.
Mm-hmm.
I've consciously and unconsciously ratcheted down the volume, the amount, the quantity, the end, the denominator is down. It's just way down, and it gives my body and my heart and my consciousness and my CNS system a whole different level showing up right now, because I can't do the 80. I can't do the 40. I can. If push came to shove, I can go out and chop wood. Okay. But it just doesn't, it's not showing up for me right now.
Tell me about your CNS and what state it's in. Not like right now or in the past, but that you may have it to where you want it, but as you're creating these new projects in this new world, you don't want to be doing it old paradigm, you want to be new paradigm. So describe new paradigm central nervous system.
And that's why I've hesitated when I've been in these rooms, and they've not forced me, but they want me to be in the front of the room, whether I'm a listener or I'm not only a participator, but I'm leading something. Is that I'm it's funny you bring this up, because I'm super cautious right now on not.
I think what's coming up is resistance in a way. It's not
Probably
resistance and wisdom.
Probably cautiousness and resistance, and what the overlap is. No doubt.
Wisdom, because sometimes resistance is like the discernment thing about is it wise? Is it something you need to pay attention to, or is it something one needs to overcome? And I'm hearing, I liked what you said about Buddha self. So um, I've got, I've got room on this template, so I might just play with the space we have. I do have another template called Flip It. Let's do this. Over on this side, I want to get your yeah buts out. And I'm going to do that over here on this side and just get them out. And then whatever this self or aspect of consciousness is, we'll have it counter these. So we just tapped into, and what's starting to emerge is this, next stage for you. And you're noticing that sitting in the back of the room and the listening, and some things are starting to snag you, right? You're starting to get kind of, ooh, that might be one. And you feel the old double Capricorn stuff kind of flare a little, or maybe even people wanting you to do that as opposed to you not wanting to, right? So there's this kind of stuff happening. So let's have that aspect of you who's not quite ready to spring into action or wants to qualify the action,
Well,
right? Have him speak.
I would actually say that I have an awareness of both things happening. So let's just call it the last 5 years or the last 7 years, as I really feel like I've been in the belly of the whale and going through this really beautiful intrinsic internal development of a whole nother aspect of Steve that I didn't have on all my past. Okay. And everywhere along the way, every year, let's just call it 1 out of each 5 years, I sat there and looked out into the universe and said, I'm ready, coach. I'm ready to go in, coach. I think I'm ready to go in. And honestly, those things weren't gelling then. They were just there. And I was kind of tangentially saying, I felt like the universe was saying, okay, just stay in the belly of the whale, work this out, truly learn like this intrinsic thing, and not let it be like lip service, and go and do it right, and really understand what intrinsic is. And I think just in the last year, that's changed. And that is changed for the different projects that I'm involved with that I've just said yes to. And that's changed for the different people that I've been involved with, and the scale that they are ushering in these environments. And I'm trying to have a whole new viewfinder on how I say yes, and when I say yes, and how big I say yes, and really the more so not on the yes on getting involved, but I'm a creator too, so I end up having this vision of like these 3 things on the board and a problem, and I can solve it. That's what big data has done for me. It's like having, all kinds of disparate information, but then finding the answer to kind of like, and one of them is like right now I must show this as an example, as maybe it would help. But I went to a meeting probably 4 years ago on social impact, and sex trafficking came up as one of the top topics.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was on my mind for years. And I'm like, okay, do I get involved with this? How do I get involved with it? I started looking into the different associations, which there are many around the world. And then I went to this men's retreat a year and a half ago, and I tell this story, and the one guy sitting in the retreat says, I'm a filmographer, and I've done this thing with these people, with this one woman, and of what they're doing here in Victoria. And I'm like, wow, got my attention. I'm like, okay. And then I meet with her, and she tells me this dramatic story, not just so much, I mean, trafficking is dramatic, but
Mm-hmm.
the one that I'm getting at is like how dramatic it is that they are working off an old legacy system with few people throwing, to me, it was my example of throwing paper clips at high technology right now, because the bad guys, they all like are computer experts, and these guys are like barely able to do analog, piece of paper kind of a thing. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
or there's a bunch of corruption in the way that allows it to continue. Yeah, so it's not so
and
much
my
the
mind
data.
went into like fix mode on all the things that I had already been studying and learning in the belly of the whale, and data analytics and the people that I know. And I'm like, I think I have an answer. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
sit there with I just can't get. I'm probably less emotional about things when something like that happens, which is
Okay,
super
okay.
emotional. But I'm like in fix mode.
Hmm. Makes sense. It's painful. It's painful when you have ways that you can contribute. So I'm gonna push you into doing future self whether you like it or not, Steve.
Obviously I'm not getting it.
I know, but when we get there, trust me, you're gonna like it.
Okay.
Okay. So I think you're further out in time. I think you need a stretch of time. And maybe this might be even actually in the latter stage of life, right? To give you that kind of perspective. So uh, you're in your 50s now, right?
61 to be exact.
61 to be exact. Okay. So what about 81?
I see it.
Yeah. Okay. Talking about viewfinder.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if we're talking about how to, I mean, it's totally what I think. I mean, whether we hit the higher self and the future self part of it, but
Well, that's it too. Who knows if you're alive, you might go over and do the other side, right? But
but
that happens sometimes. You get good info. Yeah.
yeah. And I probably, I would probably say on one axis is, what am I going to do? What does the universe want me to do with those 20 years?
Yeah.
And what should how, now I'm like, I get it. If I'm working, let's just say I'm working 10 hours a week and doing something that's all quality, or 20 hours or 30, or there's something way less than 40 and 80, but I know that I
Okay.
got to be super selective
I got you.
with those 10 years or so left. I
Yep.
mean,
Perfect.
it's not like I can spin 10 plates anymore.
Right. Right. This is the right thing to do this larger perspective. So that's going to take us to 2040. You're 81 years old. If you've passed, okay, you passed. We're going to talk to your spiritual self. It's no big deal. So, but that gives that meta view and helps give that perspective, and does help guide you about your now and this next decade of life, which is so key. Yeah. And these
Yeah.
very important topics that are starting to show up for you to get involved with and assist and help shift.
I think it just require it. I mean, what's coming up just simply and obvious to me is even, putting all this down in an illustrative form of the past and the future is, it's not about like getting a lot of hits and making a lot of money or anything like that.
No.
It's like this amazing filter, and this, whether it's a funnel or filter or whatever it is, it's all about quality again, on helping to put out there to the rest of the universe that I'm showing up, but I'm really, really super selective on what might be the right alchemy and the right flow. Even if we're
Right.
going into the surrender, the discipline and the flow in
Mm-hmm.
the center of the concentric circles. I
Yeah.
mean, that's all we're doing is trying to like send. If I put all this stuff out on LinkedIn and I'm looking for jobs, I'd be like bombarded right now with my past and my skill sets right now, right? But um, maybe I'm not trying to be an egotist about the whole thing, but I'm not trying to get more. I'm really trying to like show up for those last 20 years, which we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
right here,
Mm-hmm.
in a whole different way, right? And like, and truly saving lives and
And
making,
there you go back to that. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. Saving lives is important. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
That
social,
that resonates for you because that was back there in the past, saving lives. Excellent.
yeah. I
Okay,
mean, yeah,
I'm going to time you out, my
yeah,
friend.
yeah.
So
Go
because
for it.
I want to get you into your other consciousness and get the two of you talking and dialoguing. and seeing what's happened, because I think it's going to be really powerful. You already have a mode of transportation here, which is the whale. So I'm just going to jump in and use this whale. Since you've been in the belly of the whale, and here we are, you know, you've been in it for a couple of years here, and now we're in 2020, and you're wondering whether you're going to climb out of it. So let's take advantage of it, and let's have it swim you forward in time. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes or focus on a spot or whatever. I'm going to help you shift state. And we're going to just, for now, just talked about CNS, nervous system here. Take a deep breath. Yeah, let the shoulders go, shake the hands out. Whatever you need to kind of shrug off and let go of that wonderful left brain conversation that we just had. Very valuable and useful, good information. Well done. We'll bow to the mind, bow to the left brain. Good job, mind. And finding yourself, however you do it, you might see things, feel you're just making it up. However you do it, do it. Get yourself into that belly of the whale. And the whale's been a very smart whale, been listening all the way along, because it's been a container holder for you. And it knows that it's important for you to travel out in time and space. And don't you know, whales are very spatial, magical beings that actually can travel in space. And this whale knows, hello whale, take him to his 81-year-old self, take him to 2040. And just finding yourself, this whale is amazing, and it's got a honing beacon on the time and place of your future self. Future self knows you're coming, has been totally tracking just like the whale has to this conversation. So excited and delighted that you're coming, has been beaming goodwill while you've been in the belly of the whale all these years, and now is delighted that, oh goody, you're coming. Maybe he brought us together here so I could help facilitate this. So the whale bringing you forward, moving through the incredible ocean and currents, and here in British Columbia, and it's swimming wherever the heck it needs to swim and take you to. It's a multi-dimensional whale, so if it proceeds beyond Earth, that's fine too. And it goes through years from 2020 into 25, and blitzes through the next couple of years into 2030, and swims and dives and rolls and takes you through to 2035-ish. And just the last stretch, another 5 years, and it takes you through 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and then brings you to the time and place, probably a beach is involved somewhere, or a pier or wharf or something, to 2040. And lo and behold, you're actually able to climb yourself out of the body of the belly of the whale. The whale's going to stand by for you and take you back to 2020. It's just going to kind of putter around and swim and feast and have a good time. And it delivers you somewhere, and your future self is there. So as you're climbing and getting yourself out of that whale, you might already be there, but notice your hands and notice your feet, and notice if there's anything that you're aware of beyond them, like anything you're touching as you come into the time and place at 2040. And maybe even stumble upon the foot of the future self, and you kind of look up and there he is. However you're encountering him, if you're feeling him, seeing him, sensing him, whatever it might be, what do you notice about his environment, his space and place? And just like you encounter anybody, you're a people person, you're good with people. What is his first impressions that you get from him? What does he ooze? What does he emit?
Contentment.
Nice.
Contentment, fulfillment, and then the you know, the part of the landing in is just the observing of plush, sunny. So the landing place is super comfortable. You know, I mean, it's embodying Mexico to me, you know, and just showing up with all the technicolor and all the multi-dimensional weather aspects of a super safe haven, you know, like showing up at nothing more than an 81, just, you know, but honestly 81 doesn't feel like it's that much different than 61, so it feels just as the I'm showing up with a body just as no different, even though it's going to have 20 years on it. It feels healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it feels healthy and clear. Like it feels like I wouldn't go as far as to say vibrant, but definitely clear, um, satisfied, probably curious.
Yeah, he's got a future self from here. Evolution doesn't stop, right? So he's in a
Yeah.
certain moment of time. You've been his past and he's got a future. So allow him to receive you. Go in there and feel, get back in there, feel him. Feel him seeing you, recognizing you. And this is really a beautiful thing.
Feeling the 81, seeing me at my 61.
I want you to be greeted by your future self. So allow your future self to greet you. He's been waiting a long time to connect with you. So be received by him.
Mm-hmm.
Take it in, whether he hugs you, kisses you, whatever he does, slaps you on the back.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely emotional.
Yeah. So feel that. Welcome, welcome to the emotion. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Take a moment to just really connect with him and feel that emotion of connecting with him. Oh, nice.
You know, the first thing that comes across is the terminology, the old wiring terminology of job well done, right? And I'm catching myself with the moment with him is that it's a different kind of job, you know, where it's not like the past one. So it was a wink, wink kind of moment,
Mm-hmm. Great.
you know. Um, and the other thing that's kind of resonating with me is is that the two things were running in parallel, you know, the outside self of being involved with these projects, but the inside self of evolving,
Mm-hmm.
and that him recognizing not only were the projects, if you want to just call those, were there and done and maybe effective and things like that, but the inside evolution was powerful, you know, like I'm just at the forefront of that, you know, like truly 5, 7, 8 years of really going into a deeper intrinsic higher self kind of thing. So that means whatever higher self is today for me, with some you know discipline to stay on the path, it shows up with a whole different. And you're talking about CNS. I mean, it's truly that in itself would have some rewiring. It just inherently, if you're on that path, you're wiring. You're either getting rid of old wiring before you put in new wiring, or not.
Yeah, you're going to have an opportunity to actually feel his wiring in just a second. Allow him to take you somewhere for you. You might already have this happening, but the two of you are going to have a conversation.
Hmm.
Allow him to lead you through his environment. That's interesting too, as he's leading you through. Take it in, notice what you say, but allow him to lead you somewhere comfy that the two of you can have a conversation. Where does he lead you?
Where did he meet me or take me?
Lead you, take you. Yeah.
Um,
And in between there, as he's taking you somewhere to have a chat, notice what you notice.
yeah, I mean, I'm noticing a couple things. One is all of his obvious or direct or indirect being, you know. I want to say what he does, but just his being is showing up, as well as where he's taking me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm into the why part of it, but it's just like I have like this deep trust.
Nice. How nice.
Um,
So as you feel that trust and you feel that connection with him and enter into a dialogue, here's your opportunity. You can ask him anything. What do you want to ask him?
hmm, Good question. You know, I think the old mind would just say like, "Hey, did we do what we were supposed to do?" And but I just know that whatever it is will be the things we're supposed to do. So I don't even think that way. It's not
Mhm.
about making a did we make a mistake? Did we do the right or could we have done it better? I don't those
Yeah,
those
that's that. You're like
those
presented with this opportunity. You don't want to go there with him. So where do you want to go with him?
It'd be perfectly honest, it's more on the present moment with him
Yeah,
than going into like, you know,
a dialogue.
a
Okay, so we're
dialogue of all the things that were accomplished. It's more
okay.
like,
So
okay, how
here's where
come
we're. Go ahead.
have a
Sorry.
moment of having a moment of wisdom chat, you know, which is
Yep.
sort of like, you know, it's so present.
Yep. Yeah. So do that.
Yeah, it feels like that would be immense for me to be able to have that kind of conversation about like not even the future, not even the past, but like, wow, we were going to catch up today about like the lushness, how he's feeling, how I'm feeling, everything about the present moment.
Ask him if he's up for this. Some future selves will allow this. See if he would allow you to merge with him so that you can literally become him from the inside out.
I feel that way right offhand. I mean, it doesn't feel dissonant at all. I mean, it doesn't
Mhm.
feel like it feels like it would be easy to merge.
So ask his permission, see if he's okay, and then merge. Is he
Yeah,
okay with?
he was super inviting.
Yeah, okay, so that's a yes. Okay, you got the thumbs up. It's always just good protocol to ask before you
Makes sense.
jump into somebody's body. So yes. Okay, so now with that thumbs up, allow yourself to merge. Your outside self is saying, okay, this is the same, whatever. It may very well be, but do it now. Merge and we know how to do this. Get in there. Become him, take on his eyes, take on his limbs, take on his organs, take on his cells, take on his vibration, take on his world, take on his nervous system. Ah, there's anything you want to feel in relationship to him, feel the people that he's connected with. Feel your kids. Feel friends and community.
Yeah,
Feel,
and I think before that, just you before you get on to the tangentials, which are those outside of him, I'm noticing that as I make the merge, that he is in a different place than I am right now, both physically and emotionally and spiritually and CNS wise. It's just
yes.
it's definitely different, you know. I mean, I'm noticing the natural aspects of aging and then the positive aspects of whatever you want to call it, spiritual growth and
Mm,
whatever, and how that shows up with the CNS.
good.
Yeah.
Good, good, good.
And then the other
Didn't
stuff
mean
is
to rush you. I was going to
no,
definitely
no,
come back to
no,
that because that's the best stuff. But
yeah,
yes,
yeah, no doubt. And you know, and I think the first thing, one of the things that comes to mind is that it's a warm awareness and not a disparity awareness. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh wow, it's so different. It's just like I'm just into understanding that it's a different place.
Yeah.
And it's not about better or worse. It's not about that. It's like, it's just the understanding of age and experience, right? I mean, there's way more than just the quantity piece here. There's this, again, what happened during those 20 years. I mean, they're not, an N as an N is not the same, right? So if somebody's working on the railroad for 20 years and, you know, pounding and going into heart space versus heart space, you know, it just, it's, and I you know, I'm going to go back to my curious word, right? Which is like, wow, I really now am curious how all those things are showing up, right? And that 81-year-old
So
evolved person.
feel into it. Get out of the head and get into his body, because he is it. So feel what it's like.
Yeah.
Interesting information here. Talk about data. Isn't this
Yeah,
big?
right.
This is big data.
You
Yeah.
don't want me to talk about data. You want me to get out of that mind.
But I'm saying this is data. This is
Huge. I know it's
big
huge.
data.
And
Yeah.
that's the way that I think.
Yeah.
I think that way. I mean,
Get
I
back
just
in there. Don't talk to me in the head. Get back in there. Get back into that big data. I had to push you around.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I think of the big data, I just think of,
Don't
you know,
think. Be.
well, whenever it's going through the being part, it's like, um, it's understanding down at the molecular level, the differences, you know,
Nice. Go to that molecular level.
and, you know, understanding how his heart is what it is, and what kind of blood is there, and maybe how the blood is different now versus,
Right.
you know, 20 years before. And that doesn't mean like just old blood. I mean, that means like every part of what we were just talking about, which is like, it's not about like having 48 quarts of blood in your body and it's the same as what I have in mine today. It's about like, how different is it, like at that DNA kind
Yeah.
of molecular level.
Feel that difference. Be that difference. You are him right now.
Yeah, and I'm getting it, and I don't know how it's not coming up as better or worse. It's all coming up as, again, I keep on using the word evolution because it just depicts this change, and noticing that it's different, you know. And I don't it's hard for me to want to label it, you know.
You don't have to label it. Just feel it. Just be it.
Yeah, and
This isn't a head thing to try to explain it. Just feel it.
it feels
Perfect.
it feels super healthy. I mean,
Nice.
there's nothing about what he, on the, you know, on the minutia and the specificity detail side of things, it doesn't, outside of being 20 years older, he feels vibrant on the outside and the inside, and his eyes kind of speak to that, you know. I mean, it just
Now check something.
yeah.
Check his, as you kind of turn and maybe you see your present self, right? Your 2020 self who came to visit him, standing in front of him. See what happens as you take your younger self in. And the relationship that he has to the you that came to visit, and the goodwill he has for you. And how he notices your perspective, right? He knows that world because he came from it. You're a time traveler, you're him. And he remembers 2020, and he remembers 2025 and 30 and 35 and all the way leading up to 40. and I'm guessing probably some compassion.
Yeah,
2020 wasn't an easy year.
right.
And the stuff around that, and probably for several years or more beyond. So
But even though there was a compassion, I mean, what I think there's a sparkle in both of their eyes about
cool,
like how it was a catalyst, and
cool.
catalysts are catalysts, right? And they have a way of shifting to some degree, right? To you know take action or not take action, or how to take action. It's like they're they're a part of the surrender piece that
Yep.
you know
You've done constellations, so you'll remember that in constellations, sometimes there's these key sentences that want to be projected or spoken. See from that 2040 space, is there any key sentence or something that he wants to project to you?
hmm,
Talking about nervous system, these are often called limbic sentences because they land in our limbic system. So what does he want to convey to your limbic system? Be him and see your 2020 self and have it come through your 2040 self.
hmm. The only thing that's coming through for me right now is this the simplicity and the complexity of your breath,
Hmm.
and that is something that is always evolving, whether you're 61 or 81 or 21, of how to utilize that relative to the day to day, whether it's projects or life or whatever, and how impacting that is to. It was a look of like it was important then and it's an important now kind of a thing.
Okay, good. So that's what's coming across. He's reminding you, he's guiding you, he's saying, hey, my message to you, simplicity and complexity of your breath.
Right.
Excellent.
Yeah.
See if
Yeah.
there's anything else that he wants to beam and express to you, limbic sentence, limbic expression wise.
I think I think it's just a reminder he's trying to express on the what trust means,
Mm,
and how it equates to fear or not fear, or in trusting, whether it's trusting the universe or trusting myself, or all of those, right? Just like, and to stay in that place, because it that in itself is a direct line to the CNS,
beautiful. Excellent.
on on what is happening or could happen, and lean into it.
Mm, yeah, put your Capricorn there. If you lean into trust, right, as opposed to using your knees and your body.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, totally, for sure. And yeah, those and then I think the other one is like maybe even like a bit of a caution, just because it'll be to the end of the day I die, that I'm not trying to I am trying to kind of um dissect out the Capricorn storyline, and what shows up energetically, to do things, and I think he's kindly saying, just stick with the math. And that I'm not leaving the limbic piece here, but when he says it, he really is saying something internal, like the balance sheet within, like, keep on adding the right things and consciously subtracting out the things that are not, beneficial to the body and the heart and the limbic system. So it's like those are,
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
those require some level of awareness and discipline. And he's just saying kindly just stick with it. It's sort of like, as part of the meditation practice is, it's like when the mind starts going into monkey mind, is just to start again. It's a real kind, compassionate thing to ourselves. It's just to come back to like a non-thinking place. And he's kind of doing that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Return to the non-thinking place.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, C, sometimes our future selves as a last act, you two can connect at any time. You don't need me. It's been my honor to make the connection. You continue to interact with each other if you care to. Best mentor in the world you've just connected in with. C, while you're in him, is there a gift that he wants to give? This has all been a gift to your now self, but see if there's a gift. It might be something specific or tangible that he wants to hand you, or it might be a beaming of some intangible quality, but see if there's a gift.
Hmm. My mind is probably overthinking it because I'm thinking that he's giving me something that I need.
Did something flash? Go with whatever flashed.
Besides a cane.
Was that the only thing that flashed? That might be it.
Well, I think
Did a cane show up?
it did in a joking way, but it didn't really show
Okay,
up.
okay. Well, then that's cute. It's just like, manly joking. That's nice. So it goes,
Yeah,
here you go, kid. Here's my gift for you, a cane.
yeah, yeah. And it's not even because remember, I already saw him as spry and not like crippled, right? So
Right,
the irony is that he doesn't even need a cane.
right. So just
So
check with him, because sometimes there can be different levels to the gifts. So just and you're go back inside him and be him, or you can stand outside of him and he can talk to you that way. Say, what's with the cane?
he's just joking around saying it's a metaphor now, and he wants to get into his head with me.
Okay, good. And ask him, so do you get the metaphor? What's the metaphor?
I think the metaphor is like, when there is time for assistance of sorts, use it. That doesn't mean that
Ah, wow. Yes.
that doesn't mean that it's like you're crippled or you need to, it's not demeaning in any way. It's sort of like, that's why I mean the metaphor, you know what I mean, Christina? Because this could be
Mm-hmm.
it could be a person, it could be an event, it could be anything, but there's a sense that's not more than a sense, right? To kind of like be overly independent and
Yeah.
in most people, but for me and what we've described here is to not be afraid to ask for help or not be afraid to take on some help, and a cane is really kind of small, right? But it means a lot to when somebody is able to kind of like use it,
Well,
take it.
yeah, and I'm seeing a theme with the lean on, right? Lean into, lean on. So it goes with it. Saying trust in the universe, your and self. Stay in trust, lean into it. Now he's giving you a cane, even, which is going with the leaning thing too, which is when assistance comes, use it. When you need assistance, use it. It's okay to ask for help. He's reframing help, that it's not a bad thing and doesn't mean you're losing, you're becoming dependent.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's what I said, ego wise is like, I mean, we could riff on that one for an hour, but I mean, that is pretty powerful when it comes to saying, yeah, yes, thanks for the help, or, using it and admitting it and to self, not even to other people. This starts
Right.
with me, by myself, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's take a nap or truly anything that's metaphorical to like the assistance of something, you know, to you get.
So receive the cane, step on out of his body. You want to bow to him and thank him for that opportunity. It is an extreme gift.
Mm,
Your nervous system now is calibrated and can understand that. Even as you step away from him and you come back into your 2020 self standing in front of him, you're taking the essence of that experience. You've touched it. Now you have the touchstone, right? It resides in you. So a bow to him and receive the cane, a bow to the cane. Because like you said, you could riff on that metaphor. What a brilliant metaphor he gave you.
yeah, yeah.
And you will allow that metaphor of that cane and all those multiple layers to stay with you and play out over time. You may dream about it, right? It may be showing up in different ways, but what a wonderful gift he gave you.
Mm,
Maybe using the cane, find your way back to the whale, have him accompany you. See if there's any last minute things he wants to say or beam at you, receive them. And know that you guys have telepathy. So even though I'm going to bring you back to your place of 2020 because you can't skip steps, you got to go through it, that you have connection with him at
mm,
any time. And he may show up in your dreams. You can journal, you can whiteboard with him, right? When you're in business meetings, you can do it with your eyes open to go, hey, what do you think about this?
right.
And you can also assume him, right? So embody him. Okay, so say your goodbyes, receive again from him, your greatest ally, receive his goodbyes, and making your way back to that whale. And the whale is delighted to have been of service for this very important journey. And then it's going to reverse journey you over time and space and bring you back from 2040 through those years leading up to 2035, through those years leading up to 2030, through those years leading to 2025, and through those years coming into landing, you might get a little churny and bumpy as we're coming closer to 2020. And it dropping you off down there at the new blue bridge, the new white blue bridge.
Mhm.
And you're able to hop off and
Right,
wander on back to your home and back to this desk and the computer sitting in front of me, having come back from this journey. You're already doing it, but stretching, opening your eyes and recalibrating to 2020, having come back from an amazing journey. And I just want you to test the telepathy. Right now that you're in 2020, just I got home, right? Just like you text people like I got home safe.
yep,
So
yep.
send them a little text and see what comes back.
Beautiful.
So you
Yes.
can feel it, right? So that
Yep.
that line of communication is open.
Yeah.
And at any time you can text him or receive, telepathy from him. He's there from that perspective and from that energy at any time, being able to guide you as you go about different decisions, as you go about taking this version 1.0 to the next stage of it. After we get off camera here, I'll point you to some people who are great with studio work who can take this up to the next step, and I'm happy to talk with them in that process too if they care to. But this is really exciting, and use future self as you continue to ponder this and clarity comes. He's going to be able to guide you to create the page for your site or the visual bio or your all this positioning, right? And all the coming from the heart, and selecting the projects as these projects are coming into being and you're having to make decisions, and he will guide you of when you step out of that belly of the whale from the back and you start to say things or you start to raise your hand to I can help and assist with that,
Right, right.
and the boundaries around it, right? And the awareness around your nervous system. And then through this all breath, right? He's got in here simplicity and complexity of your breath and trust and
Mm,
help, right? The cane metaphor.
mm.
and a different way of leaning into. You're leaning into these things as opposed to the way you did it in the, you know, the first 9, right? Back 9 now. It's
Yeah.
like there's a different different way of going through life, as the Taurus with double Capricorn can even do it. Okay, my friend. Let's step back. The map is never the territory, and it's always a very full map. You and I will know what this is because step by step it was created. But anything you want to say to complete, knowing it's going to continue to unfold and show even more things to you.
Cool. This is great. It was really good to go through the process with you and understand it a little bit better, and see it as well as feel it, and go through the future part, which is, you know, was a little challenging for me, but I got there eventually.
You did, and you just nothing. This is the only your future self could get you here, right? So that wisdom that came through from him, and that groundedness and that nervous system, I'm glad I pushed you to do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, my pleasure.